truck died with a shudder that mirrored my own reluctance, dust swirling around me like the ghosts I'd come back to face. I killed the engine and sat there, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles went white, my wedding ring, long since removed, leaving a pale band of accusation on my finger. 5 years. 5 goddamn years since I'd run from this place like the devil himself was chasing me. Maybe he was. The late afternoon sun burned against my face as I forced myself out of the cab, my designer heels hitting Wyoming dirt with a finality that made my stomach clench. Those same heels had clicked confidently across Denver boardroom floors just yesterday, commanding respect and closing deals. Here, they sank into the earth, like everything else I'd thought made me strong. Dannington sprawled before me like a wounded animal, broken fencing, rusted gates, dreams left to rot in the mountain air. The sight hit me like a physical blow, the memories crashing over me in waves I wasn't prepared for. This had been my father's pride, our family's legacy stretching back 3 generations. Now it looked like a graveyard of broken promises. The scent hit me next. Sage and pine, leather and hay, all mixed with something I couldn't name but recognized in my bones. Home. The word tasted bitter on my tongue, tinged with loss and regret so sharp it made my chest ache. I slammed the truck door harder than necessary, the sound echoing off the distant mountains like a gunshot. My hands trembled as I reached for my Louis Vuitton duffel, a piece of my carefully constructed city life that looked obscene against this backdrop of decay. I'd faced down aggressive CEOs and performed hostile takeovers without flinching, but coming home to face my brother? That had me shaking like a leaf in a Wyoming windstorm. The gravel shifted beneath my feet as I approached the sagging gate, each step a journey backward through time. The hinges screamed in protest when I pushed it open, the sound cutting through the silence like a rusty blade. Everything here was falling apart, just like I'd left it. Just like I'd left him. God, what have I done? I picked my way through the scattered debris of broken dreams, tools abandoned mid-repair, saddles rotting on the porch rail, fencing that had given up the fight against time and neglect. Each step forward felt like walking backward through my own personal hell, toward a reckoning 5 years in the making. The screen door to the main house hung crooked on its frame, and I could see movement inside through the dusty glass. My heart hammered against my ribs as I climbed the front steps, each board creaking under my weight like an accusation. The sound of my heels on weathered wood announced my arrival to whatever waited inside. I didn't knock. This was still my home, wasn't it? The thought felt hollow as I pushed inside, the familiar smell of aged wood and dust flooding my senses. But underneath it all was something else. Grief. It clung to the walls like smoke, thick and choking, making it hard to breathe. So you finally crawled back. Caleb's voice cut through me, stopping me cold in the entryway. He stood near Dad's old desk, arms crossed over his chest, looking like he'd aged a decade in the 5 years since I'd seen him. His jaw was set hard enough to crack teeth, and his eyes looked like winter in the Rockies. Cold, unforgiving. The boy I'd grown up with had become a man carved from Wyoming granite, all sharp edges and weathered strength. His dark hair was longer now, curling slightly at his collar. My brother was an ass, but he was my father's spitting image and equally handsome. The thing about Caleb was that he wore his anger like armor, but I could see the hurt beneath it, raw and still bleeding after all these years. Hello to you too, brother. I dropped my bag by the door and forced myself to meet his stare, my chin lifted in the stubborn defiance that had always driven him crazy. You look like hell. Funny. I was about to say the same about you. He stepped closer, and I caught the scent of whiskey on his breath, sharp and medicinal. It wasn't even 5 o'clock. The realization hit me like a gut punch. This was what my leaving had done to him. Though I suppose playing dress-up as a city veterinarian suits you better than honest ranch work ever did. The barb hit its mark, but I'd had 5 years to build up armor against his particular brand of venom. Still, it stung. Because he was right. I had been playing dress-up, hadn't I? Creating a life that looked successful from the outside while feeling hollow as a broken eggshell. I didn't come here to fight, Caleb. My voice came out steadier than I felt, professional and controlled. The voice that had closed million-dollar deals and earned respect in boardrooms full of men who wanted to dismiss me. No? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. The sound was bitter as burnt coffee, scraping against my nerves. Then why the hell did you come? Guilt finally catch up to you? Yes, but I wasn't about to give him that satisfaction. Dad's will. Caleb's voice turned savage, each word a weapon designed to wound. You want to talk about Dad's will? Let's talk about how he spent his last 6 months asking why his daughter never called. Let's talk about how he died with your name on his lips, wondering what he'd done wrong to make you hate us so much. The words smacked me, each one finding its mark and tearing into my soul. I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly too cold despite the warm evening air flowing through the open windows. The pain I'd been running from crashed over me in waves, threatening to pull me under. I didn't hate, I started, but my voice cracked, betraying me. Bullshit. Caleb's fist slammed down on the desk, making me jump. Papers scattered like startled birds, and I saw his hands were shaking too. You ran, Laurel. The second things got tough. The second Dad started talking about responsibility and legacy, you tucked tail and ran like the coward you've always been. Coward. The word echoed in my head because wasn't that exactly what I was? Wasn't that why I was standing here now, 5 years too late, with my father already cold in the ground, and my brother looking at me like I was something distasteful he'd found on the bottom of his boot? The accusation hung between us like smoke from a dying fire. Outside, I could hear the wind picking up, setting the old windmill to creaking, a sound that had once comforted me, but now seemed ominous. Everything here carried the weight of memory, of choices made and unmade. I need to see my room, I said quietly, picking up my bag. The leather felt foreign in my hands, a reminder of the life I'd built away from this place. We can discuss the ranch tomorrow. Your room? Caleb stepped into my path, close enough that I could see the pain lurking behind his anger, close enough to smell the whiskey on his breath. You mean the shrine I've been maintaining to my absent sister? Don't worry, Princess. Everything's exactly how you left it. Unlike some people, I don't abandon the things I'm supposed to protect. The casual cruelty in his words was designed to cut deep, and it worked. I pushed past him, my shoulder brushing against his chest. I climbed the stairs on legs that felt like water, each step a journey back through time. The hallway stretched before me, lined with family photos whose eyes seemed to follow my ascent with judgment. There was Dad in his prime, Mom before the cancer took her, Caleb and me as children, gap-toothed and grinning, innocent of the pain that waited in our future. The glass was dusty, neglected, another casualty of my abandonment. My bedroom door stood slightly open, as if it had been waiting for me. I pushed inside and nearly stumbled at the sight that greeted me. Caleb wasn't lying. Everything was exactly as I'd left it. The faded blue wallpaper with its tiny roses, the patchwork quilt Grandma Rose had made, the bookshelf crammed with veterinary textbooks and dog-eared romance novels I'd been too embarrassed to pack. Even my old riding boots sat by the window, caked with 5-year-old mud. The sight of them broke something inside me. Memories flooding back of early morning rides with Dad, of learning to rope and brand, of believing this would be my forever. I set my bag on the bed and moved to the window, drawn by some masochistic need to survey the full extent of the damage I'd helped cause. The view stretched across the ranch yard to the corrals and beyond, where cattle grazed in pastures that had once been pristine, but now showed the wear of too much responsibility on too few shoulders. That's when I saw him. Movement near the barn caught my eye, and my breath hitched in my throat. Even at this distance, I recognized the easy confidence in his stride, the way he moved like he belonged to this land in a way I never had. Grayson Calloway, Dad's foreman, the man who'd haunted my dreams for 5 long years, the man I'd been running from just as much as I'd been running from everything else. I pressed my forehead against the cool glass, watching him work, mesmerized despite myself. He'd filled out since I'd last seen him, shoulders broader, movements more assured. The years had been kind to him in a way they clearly hadn't been to the ranch, or to Caleb, or to me. His dark hair caught the late afternoon light as he bent to examine a fence post, and even from here I could see the careful precision in his movements. He was beautiful, still dangerous. "What are you doing here, Grayson? Why didn't you leave when everything started falling apart?" As if he could feel my gaze, he looked up toward my window. Even across the distance, I felt the impact of those green eyes like a physical touch. My heart stuttered, and I stepped back from the window as if I'd been burned, pressing my hand to my chest where my pulse raced like a trapped bird. Some things apparently hadn't changed. Grayson Calloway still had the power to turn me inside out with a single look. I splashed cold water on my face in the tiny bathroom adjoining my room, attempting to wash away the road dust and the ghosts. The woman staring back at me from the mirror looked like a stranger, too thin, too pale, eyes that had seen too much and forgiven too little. My auburn hair hung limp around my shoulders, no longer the wild curls of my youth. I'd thought 5 years would be enough time to become someone else, someone stronger. I'd been wrong. I changed into fresh jeans and a simple cotton shirt, clothes that felt foreign after years of tailored suits and designer dresses. The denim was stiff, unwelcoming, a reminder that I no longer belonged in this world I'd once called home. I tied my hair back in a ponytail that made me look younger than my 28 years. Maybe that was the point. Maybe I was trying to recapture some piece of the girl who'd lived in this room, who'd believed in love and second chances and happy endings. The girl who'd been fool enough to fall for the hired help. I slipped down the back stairs to avoid another confrontation with Caleb, at least for now. The kitchen was exactly as I remembered. Warm wood cabinets, copper pots hanging from hooks, the old farmhouse table where we'd eaten countless meals as a family, before everything went to hell, before Mom died and Dad retreated into work, and I learned that love was just another thing that could be taken away without warning. The screen door beckoned, promising escape from the suffocating weight of memory. I pushed through it onto the back porch, breathing deeply of the mountain air. The scent of sage and wildflowers filled my lungs, clean and pure in a way that Denver air never was. Out here, I could almost pretend that nothing had changed, that I was still the starry-eyed girl who'd believed this place would be her forever home. Almost. Laurel. My name on his lips sent electricity shooting down my spine. I turned slowly, like a woman walking to her execution, and found Grayson standing at the bottom of the porch steps. Up close, the changes 5 years had wrought were even more apparent. The lines around his eyes spoke of long days in the sun, and there was a hardness to his jaw that hadn't been there before. But those eyes, God, those eyes were exactly the same. Green as spring grass, with golden flecks that caught the light. Eyes that had once looked at me like I was the answer to every prayer he'd never spoken. Now they held only careful neutrality, as if I were a stranger he was meeting for the first time. The distance in them hurt more than Caleb's anger had. "Grayson." I gripped the porch railing to keep my hands steady, my knuckles white against the weathered wood. "I heard you were still here." "Where else would I be?" He climbed the steps slowly, each movement deliberate and controlled. Everything about him spoke of restrained power, of a man who'd learned to keep his emotions on a tight leash. "This is my home." "Your home." The words stung because they were true. He belonged here in a way I never had, never would. He'd stayed when I'd run, fought when I'd fled. He'd earned the right to call this place home. "How long has it been like this?" "The ranch, I mean." I gestured vaguely toward the broken fencing, the peeling paint, the visible signs of neglect and financial strain. "Started going downhill about 2 years after you left." His voice was carefully neutral, but I caught the undercurrent of accusation. Each word was chosen with precision, designed to cut without appearing to. "Your father tried to keep it together, but his heart wasn't in it anymore. Hard to fight for something when half your legacy walks away without looking back." I flinched. The truth of it hit me like a slap. Dad had needed me, and I'd abandoned him when things got difficult. When staying meant facing my feelings for the man standing in front of me. Feelings that terrified me more than any business negotiation ever had. "That's not fair," I whispered, but the words sounded hollow even to me. "Isn't it?" He was close enough now that I could smell him. Leather and sweat, soap and something indefinably male that made my knees weak. "You want to know what's not fair, Laurel?" "What's not fair is watching a good man work himself into an early grave because his daughter was too proud to come home. What's not fair is watching your brother drink himself stupid every night because he can't figure out how to save this place alone." "I didn't know," I started, but he cut me off with a look. "Because you didn't want to know." He leaned against the railing beside me, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. "You built yourself a nice little life in Denver, didn't you? Clean hands, steady paycheck, no messy family complications. You don't know anything about my life." The words came out sharper than I'd intended, defensive and raw. "Don't I?" His laugh was bitter, edged with something that might have been pain. "I know you're not wearing a wedding ring. I know you drove here alone. I know you've been avoiding this place like it was cursed for 5 goddamn years." My cheeks burned. He'd noticed the absence of my wedding ring. A marriage that had lasted exactly 18 months before crumbling under the weight of my inability to love anyone the way I'd loved the man standing beside me. Maybe it is cursed. Maybe some places are too broken to fix. And maybe some people are too scared to try. The challenge in his voice made me turn to face him fully, and that was a mistake. Looking at Grayson Calloway head-on had always been dangerous for me. He saw too much, understood too well. And right now, with the golden light of evening painting his features and those green eyes boring into mine, he was devastating. The years had sharpened him, carved away any softness he might have once possessed. His jaw was stubbled with a day's growth of beard, and a thin scar ran from his left temple to his cheekbone. New since I'd last seen him. It gave him a dangerous edge that made my pulse race. "I'm not scared," I lied, my voice barely above a whisper. "No?" His hand moved to cover mine on the railing, and the touch sent fire racing up my arm. His skin was warm, calloused from years of hard work, achingly familiar despite the time that had passed. "Then why are you shaking?" I jerked my hand away like he'd burned me, stepping back until I hit the porch post. The wooden pillar was solid against my spine, grounding me when everything else felt like it was spinning out of control. Because I'm angry. Because I come home to find everything falling apart and everyone acting like it's my fault. Isn't it? The question hung between us, brutal in its simplicity. Because the truth was, he was right. I had run. I'd taken the easy way out, telling myself I was escaping a life that felt too small, too limiting. But deep down, I'd known I was running from him. From the way he made me feel. From the terrifying possibility of a love that could destroy me. "Why did you stay?" I asked instead of answering, my voice thick with emotions I couldn't name. When everything started falling apart, why didn't you find another job? God knows there are plenty of ranches that could use a good foreman. Something flickered across his face. Pain, maybe, or regret. For a moment, his careful mask slipped, and I saw the man I'd once known beneath the hardened exterior. Because someone had to. Because your father was a good man who deserved better than to watch his life's work crumble. Because... He trailed off, looking out across the ranch with an expression I couldn't read. The silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken words, and years of regret. Because, I prompted, hardly able to breathe. Because I kept hoping you'd come back. The admission seemed to surprise him as much as it did me, slipping out before he could stop it. I kept thinking that eventually you'd remember what this place meant to you, what we meant to one another. My heart hammered against my ribs so hard I was sure he could hear it. The air between us grew thick, charged with possibility and danger in equal measure. This was exactly what I'd been running from. This intensity. This connection that threatened to consume everything in its path. Grayson, I began, but I didn't know how to finish. How could I explain that I'd thought of him every day for 5 years? That I'd measured every man against him and found them all unsuitable? That I'd married another man while still wearing the ghost of his touch on my skin? I know. He straightened, putting distance between us again, but his eyes remained locked on mine. I know it was stupid. I know you made your choice 5 years ago, but hope's a hard thing to kill, even when it's slowly destroying you. The raw honesty in his voice nearly undid me. I wanted to reach for him, to bridge the gap between us with a touch or whispered apology. To tell him that every choice I'd made since leaving had been wrong, that he'd been the only real thing in a life full of beautiful lies. But I'd given up the right to comfort him the day I'd packed my bags and driven away without looking back. I should go check on Caleb, I said instead, the words tasting like ashes in my mouth. It was cowardice, pure and simple. But I couldn't handle the weight of his confession. Not yet. Should you? Grayson's smile was sharp as a blade, cutting through my defenses. Or are you just running again? I wanted to deny it, but we both knew he was right. Running was what I did best. From confrontation, from responsibility, from feelings that threatened to overwhelm me. I'd been running my whole life, and I was so damn tired of it. But not tired enough, apparently, to stop. I'll see you around, Grayson. I turned to go, but his voice stopped me. Laurel. When I looked back, his expression had softened slightly, revealing a glimpse of the man who'd once held my heart in his hands. For what it's worth, I'm glad you're home. Even if it's too late for some things, it's not too late for everything. Not too late for everything. The words followed me as I escaped into the house, up the stairs, and back to the safety of my childhood room. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared out at the darkening landscape, watching as the lights came on in the bunkhouse where Grayson lived. My fingers found the photograph I'd tucked into my jacket pocket earlier, a picture of the 3 of us from better days. Dad in the center, Caleb and me flanking him, all of us grinning at the camera. We'd looked so happy then, so sure of our place in the world. Now Dad was gone. Caleb hated me. And Grayson. Grayson was offering me hope I wasn't sure I deserved. Outside, the wind picked up, setting the pine trees to whispering their secrets to the night. For the first time in 5 years, I found myself listening. And in their whispered song, I heard something I'd almost forgotten, the sound of home calling me back from the wilderness of my own making. The question was I brave enough to answer,